that's why I think a lot of people are really going through it right now, as we all feel locked in, like we're in the chariot, we're being carried through a procession that
Yeah.
maybe we some people say we chose to incarnate in this life, so we have to take responsibility for it. And how do we show up? And how do we build bridges between um, different systems of thought? And yes, tell the truth, and yes, not lie. Um, I think that that's really important to me right now. Is um, how I'm at the end of the day. Do I have I is there a war in my life? Am I with my brother, literally my brother, and my literally my sister, my sibling, that I have to resolve? Is there
Yeah.
something, did I say the right thing today? Did I do the right thing?
I'm your host, Sha Hurley. Each week, I invite a conscious leader in tech, sales, and beyond to share their inner journey, how they overcome obstacles, how they achieve success while staying true to themselves, and above all, what makes them human beings. I hope those authentic conversations serve as an inspiration for you as you continue your own inner journey of self-discovery, healing, and mastery.
Hello, Aidan. Welcome to the show.
Ah, how are you?
Alive, a mix of different things. It's been pretty wild. How's your week going? Hold on. Let's use one tarot card to describe how you feel this week.
Well, I mean, I think there's maybe the nine of wands, um, which is about resilience. Um, it depicts a woman standing with nine upright, planted, rooted wands in her midst, and um, it's about looking for a foundation, looking for something to hold on to. She's actually holding on to um, one of the staves in the picture. So that's how I feel right now. Is I feel like I'm I'm getting my bearings, and so I would turn it around over to you and say if there's one tarot card that embodies how you're feeling right now.
It's just,
What is it about
I'm,
that card for you right now at this stage?
it's doing a lot of new things, experiencing a lot of new things. Even this podcast, I started this podcast um, after my time on Google, but the way how I did it was very much grounded in the way how I knew about certain things. Sha, this is a structure, go do the thing how you know about it. And then I stopped doing it, and now I'm getting back to it with a fresh set of eyes. This kind of like, I don't know, childlike wonder about a lot of things. And walking my dog, she smells flowers, and I'm like, okay, how does it smell? So I'll smell the flower with my dog, and which looks pretty weird while we're both doing it on the road. So yeah.
I think it's very fitting, right? I mean, I love that feeling too when I've been out walking my family's dog and going past some flowers. You think of the Fool card, and you think, oh, I must be the fool, you know? And so the cliff that you're walking off of, or the what James Joyce would call a disappointed bridge, a pier that goes off into in the middle of the ocean or in the middle of the air or into an abyss. You're just walking off of it. But then when you're in your day, you might actually be walking off an abyss. You might be a character in King Lear. I don't know. But what if you're just living in a modern city in a modern time? What's the inner abyss, or the sort of hologram that you're working with in your life? In your office, or trying to stay connected to your world. Um, it's sort of a different metaphorical cliff that you're walking off of, right?
You got a very unique insights into the messages behind each card. Let's maybe give some space to your intro, like who are you? If you want to introduce in any special way you wanted it, with whether it's storytelling or your roles and titles, which I care less about, or pick a few tarot cards, kind of like share your whole inner journey, kind of describing what you went through, your whole personal transformation.
Good, good. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on this. And I'm humbled because I know you're a seeker, and I've really enjoyed hearing what you've had to say about this. So I'm from San Francisco. Um, uh, my ancestors are from Ireland, and I'm third generation San Franciscan on my mother's side, and a um, Actually, I'm fourth generation. I'm on my mother's side, and then on my father's side, it's not as clear. We seem to have come to America a couple hundred years ago. Stones crop up here and there all along the East Coast and throughout the land. It's a very common name. Comes from England, and so, um, but there's O'Donnell on my mother's side. So just to give a little context for my ancestry, I'm, Anglo-Irish, you could say, with a little bit of Spanish, some Scandinavian, some Syrian. My relationship to tarot has been through a mentor that I met about 15 years ago. Touch with literature and the history of philosophy and mathematics and physics. I mean, she's a real polymath, and she recently came to Feldman's Books to talk about her project Money Medicine Tarot. You can find Money Medicine Tarot by Googling it, and it's just an online way of pulling cards, and it's beautifully constructed prose poems. So it was through her tutelage that I gained some insight, and I pulled some cards before I went into the call. You
Oh, wow. What did you
gave me
get?
my bearings. That's why I cited the Nine of Wands. Nine of
Mm,
Wands as the gift of this, and so that gave me some clarity. And so maybe you can see a little bit of my method there, but more on that later. The challenge, which was the second card in the scene, which is the world. Okay,
okay. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh my God. It's a
there's a
lot
little
of flowers, but
dandelion.
there's what's outside of the circle?
It seems to be
Is
like
that ocean or
it could be
cosmic?
cosmic abyss, tohu vabohu.
Ooh.
It could be a portal from a
Yeah, it looks like a portal, you know.
cave, or um
What
and
does the word card mean to you? When I was in San Francisco, I went to the center of San Francisco and then someone did a tarot reading and then she looked at me, she's like, Sha, like the card I have envisioned for you is the word. And that was not too long ago. So like what maybe share some of the your interpretations and insights on
well,
that
I'll tell
card.
you what, in tribute to my teacher, I'll just read a poem from the Money Medicine Tarot and the card for the world. Now, since she focuses on money medicine, she thinks about these cards sometimes with alternative names, and the world happens to also be called the market in her deck. Um, a storm gathered on the horizon, and the villagers gathered, afraid. The lights they lit to see better what was to come became a beacon. Whatever appeared at the gates, human, beast, bird, she told them to let it in. How will we feed them all? We will feed them, and they will feed us. So there's a cryptic and oracular quality to these poems as well. They're true poems, I would say. She invokes in many ways the image of the Sphinx with the world. The Rider Waite deck shows the woman surmounted by the four animals,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah, I have it here.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
those are astrologically significant, I believe, and they also resonate with systems of four, in different teachings of ancient medicine and religion, you know.
Mm.
Um, Now, in the Elemental Power Tarot by Melinda Lee Holm, I would like to read which her entry is, give her total credit because she shapes my view of it. The world, and this is her card for the world. I'll hold it up, and it has
Mm.
dandelions in it. Step further into uncertainty. You are being reborn into a new version of yourself. Among the swirling stars and galaxies of the universe, a small beam of light grows larger and larger until you can see that it is actually a sort of door, a doorway. Through it, a field of wildflowers and weeds stretches into the distance, inviting you to step across the threshold and into a new world. Then she offers guidance. One chapter is ending and another is beginning. For now, you are in the space between, able to reflect on the past while contemplating the future. In this liminal state, you are both expanding and contracting, filling up with what you need for the journey ahead and being emptied of all excess baggage. It can be disorienting. Trust that you are well cared for. The portal will deposit you exactly where you need to be. You may not be able to see where that is right now, and that is probably for the best. Your vision has not yet expanded enough to see the full range of possibilities. Your job now is to remain open. Think of it as tumbling uphill. You might get a little dizzy, but you will eventually come to a resting state and get your bearings again. The challenge that home offers: transformation takes time to unfold. Once the dust of the portal settles, you may feel disappointed that things look similar to what they were before. You are the one who has changed. Allow yourself time to prove how far you've come. And then she offers an apothecary for each major arcana, um, a bit of intuitive herbalism. The dandelion promotes expansion, cleansing of the physical and etheric bodies, and luck. The greens can be eaten as vegetable. It is commonly available as a tea. So, what do you think about that in terms of that's the card I pulled for the challenge?
I just feel like you're reading that to me. Like my soul definitely feel like the sense of resignation. Like I told you the word I thought was the full, but after you read the whole thing, I was like, oh, this is me. I'm in that portal. Like I'm literally in this portal because I don't know what's next. I'm in the process of like being open to what might be possible, and but because I don't see, like you're saying, you don't see the full range of possibility. There's certain I I like when you're saying this, like, expansion, but also contracting, that very uncomfortable state of being. It's like, I think as a human being, naturally, we want a certainty. We wanted to know what's next. What do we want to take actions on? It's kind of interesting because I work with the people who are going through transitions or personal transformations. So if we really kind of bucket whatever they go through in different categories, it is starting with this first phase, which is this. You and I talk about initiation. We talk about, certain things happen, changes, and that kind of like open the person's eyes and to see something, something needs to change within me. And then maybe something outside will change as a result. So, or maybe both are happening at the same time. So I thought about tower moments, the devil or death, maybe judgments, the moon. The moon to me is really illusion. And then there's this like fertile ground, the void. And then you go through this whole integration. Um, to me, we can talk about what cards kind of like we can align or archetypes we can align to this process and new beginning. So this whole thing is a circle. It's like it's never ending. Like some of the clients I work with, like, would say yes. They would say, um, Shah, like I just feel like this is never ending. It is never ending, We as human beings we're going through those circles with whether we're going through relationship changes, career changes, or health crisis, something is happening within us. So I think it's interesting we kind of like maybe talk through this. The word, which phase do you think it fits in that whole stage of personal transformation or inner transformation?
Well, at the in some decks, the world is the ultimate card. It's the final card in the deck. In another tradition, the world takes place of the fool, and the fool is actually the ultimate card in the deck, and the world is the initiatory card. So the fool and the world go together, and this is a beautiful card that Holm has for the fool. I think it's very cute. It has this little
What is that?
like a Pomeranian dog,
Okay.
and then I believe bergamot and a little extension into the abyss. And it has a little sun or a moon in the sky. It looks kind of like the moon to me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
could
Like
be
a
an
full moon. Mm-hmm.
overcast day on another way. So we can talk about the sun too. But and we'll talk about the moon as well. You mentioned the moon. That was a card that I pulled for the like supervening archetype of the conversation, which is what
Mm-hmm.
a term that I use to think like it's maybe the the question, the question that answers the question with another question.
Can you
Like,
say more about that?
what do you think I mean when I say that?
There's no definite answer to. It's more like an exploration or like one
Unclear.
after another. There's different layers to different whatever we're seeking in a way.
Yes, yes, and I think that I like this where we're getting going in 10 different directions at once right now. Um, uh, so let me rein it in. Let me rein it in. the the world card in the text I read you, um, the beast comes to the gates, and the villagers are gathered, and they have these lights to illuminate, but that's because they're afraid, and that creates a beacon so that now they're actually more vulnerable in a way to this sphinx that's come to the gates, and a wise person instructs them to let the beast in, and the villagers say, well, how will we feed her? And she responds, uh, she will feed us, and we will feed her, right? So there's this um, cryptic sort of invocation in that poem, and she calls it the market too. You know, she's all about healing people's issues around money is the intention of the deck. And by the way, money or pentacles or coins is one of the minor arcana suits, right? So it's the material world and material concerns are also part of the tarot, because the tarot reflects humanity and the humanities and human life, human culture, not just the spirit world. You know, especially in the minor arcana, does pretty damn good psychology of um of humanity. But just to jump into that, then the final card that I pulled for the future or the outcome of this conversation was the tower, where all these something hits the tower, lightning or an impact, and all these bricks go scattering everywhere, all over the place. That's kind of what I happens to me when I look at a tarot card. Is I get this sort of uh, punch in the face of insight. You know, like I've been like somebody's grabbed me and made me stop when I was moving too quickly. Suddenly I have to encounter this thing, you know, this um fascinating image. I'm fascinated, I will say that. And that's in many ways to not to say that yes, fascination is a good thing. Like maybe it's a bad thing to be fascinated in certain contexts because you're almost obsessed. You're like transfixed by the beautiful shimmering phenomena, and it distracts you maybe from from what's right in front of you. But on the other hand, I'll show some more notes of scholarship that I've been really influenced by. Of course, there's 78 degrees of Wisdom by Rachel Pollack. I haven't a copy of that on me, but there's also Jessica Doerr's Tarot for Change, which is a wonderful book. Ellie Nichols' Jung and the Tarot is
Mm,
a very an archetypal journey is a very should we say kind of orthodox text. This is very orthodox. You know, this is where I really get the idea of enzyme of spiritual enzymes. Um, and this is a journey into Christian Hermeticism via the um, via the major arcana and
okay.
the lives of the saints. So this is great because it also helps me, um, per the card of the Hierophant or the Hermit, uh, hold on
Mm-hmm.
hold on to um, Orthodox tradition. But I was raised Catholic, so
Okay.
think that it's important to for me to mention that just back into my ancestry again, which is that I'm not a heretic by any means. I'm something of a hermit that lives in the middle of Whole Foods and Safeway. You know, I'm a wannabe. At this point, there you hear enough people who are um, so-called materialists or rationalists, but when you look closer, you realize, oh, they actually know that there's a spiritual dimension, and they're maybe just hiding what they know, you know, and working with spirit. So I think this is a conscious and out in the open conversation where we're almost coming out of the closet around our spirituality and our sense of metaphysics. And hopefully our metaphysics isn't garbage either. Like I don't want to just like come to the table with like some bullshit, you know, idea about
Mm-hmm.
spirituality. I want to know what's going on in the soul, in the mind, in and not only within but without in the physical world. You know, what is the physical aspect to the spirit, and vice versa. What is the spiritual dimension to physical reality? So now, okay, now I'm doing my one of my rants once again. You have to forgive me.
But I just feel like the whole thing about stay on topic, that's trained, right? Because most of our creative minds don't work that way. So for us to engage in a conversation that fits in this Western, I don't know, capitalized word, it's always about Okay, what's your point? Where do you want to go to? Like, why are we talking about this? It's always a why, but like sometimes our mind doesn't work that way. So can we allow some fluidity? Is that the word in
Yes.
conversations? You know,
I think that's
why
why
not?
music is a great metaphor, right? Because especially jazz or even certain
Oh yes, yes,
certain improvisational styles of music.
exactly. What do you think about tower moments? This is actually the scariest card in the whole deck. Every time when I pull cards for me, if this one come out, I'm like, shit, something's gonna happen or something's happening that maybe I'm not aware of.
And we should also eventually talk about how we should apprehend. What I would say is that the tower, misery, distress, indigence, adversity, calamity, disgrace, deception, ruin. It is a card in particular of unforeseen catastrophe. Reversed, the tower means negligence, absence, distribution, carelessness, distraction, apathy, nullity, and vanity. That's A.E. White's entry on the pictorial key to the tarot for the tower. Now, no wonder you feel afraid of it. Misery, distress, indigence. What is indigence again? Indigence, a state of extreme poverty. How many of us are so driven by, oh, I'm going to be poor, I'm going to be homeless, I'm going to be a bag lady, I'm going to be a bag man, I'm going to be, like we worry about getting a low status, a job with no money. What if we lose everything? Oh, but for the grace of God goes I. It could be me on the street. You know, what if some war comes and the state of all the fears and rambling sort of fears that come to our mind. And I think it's interesting to think now, since I invoked the central bank and I'm still trying to be the Hierophant right now, let me quote one of the great high popes of the material world, Mr. Warren Buffett, and um, and also Charlie Munger, the great from Berkshire Hathaway, who had a system of inversion. Whenever they wanted to learn how to do something, they would think about how not to do it, and then the old joke is this joke about the rustic man who said, "I want to learn where I will die, so I will not go to that place." Uh, or the idea that if somebody asked you, I want to improve the economy of India, how would I do it? Then Charlie Munger would say, well, first I would think about how would I ruin the economy of India, and then I would just do the opposite of those things. So it's this idea of inversion. So let's look at inversion of just gonna uh, the tower, right? Uh, the opposite of misery, the opposite of distress. We have a joy. What do you think is the opposite of distress?
Hmm. This makes me feel like the conversation I just had with a friend when I was in Iceland dancing. Because dancing is a form of expression,
Huh?
creative expression. And then the person was saying, like, the opposite of depression or despair, it's not joy, it's expression. It is to allow ourselves to express what's inside of ourselves. That's the freedom of sharing whatever it's inside of ourselves. So to me, it's like the opposite of that is telling the truth.
Mm,
I mean, if before us for us to tell the truth, we have to connect to our truth. And then so maybe the card of high priestess, like, or hermit, like going so deep inward, connect to the inner knowing instead of like what everyone else is saying, um, might or might not be true. So that's my take. What do you think?
I think you're right. I think I love the image of dancing too as a medicine to deal with the fears associated with the tower. Learning to dance through it. You know, um, how do people express themselves in the midst of great oppression and strife? How do people who are being murdered still maintain uh, to express their humanity?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think what's the calm after the storm, after the storm, after the a calamity in your life, after the death, um, after the tragedy, and there's calm and there's some sort of getting your grip again. There's a sort
Mm.
of the moment of clarity that follows deep connection, deep numbness, deep apathy. Let's say you've been apathetic for a long time, and then you start to care again. you know?
Yeah, that's like when you touch the edge and then you kind of like, I'm done with it. I'm not gonna stay there for any longer because I've had enough. Are you, I'm like when I'm listening to you, it's almost I'm thinking about the star card. Like, it's like healing, maybe.
Mhm.
Or do you feel like the tower is always leading us to healing? Or not really?
The card that follows the tower is the star.
Oh, I didn't even notice the
The
sequence there.
the 16th card is the tower, and the 17th card is the star. So intuitively,
Hmm.
you hit upon it, and so
What about death? I'm curious. Where does death and the
um,
evil fits into this whole destructive
we can
energy before we talk
we
about
can go
healing?
to death and then go to the star. So
Okay.
death is, I think, a frustrating card for people because, of course, it's almost a cliche at that point. Well, death isn't really death in the tarot.
It's ego death for most,
Well,
I
I think
guess.
sure, I think ego death is symbolic death, ego death. I think also it's a card that doesn't have a number, by the
Oh,
way.
I didn't notice that.
It
Okay.
does take place in a sequence, in the sequence, right? And between the hangman and the and temperance, right? It's number 13. And just in the way that
Mm-hmm.
in hotel elevators, they don't put the 13th floor. In some decks, the death card number 13 isn't numbered. So once again, we return back to the numerology and the idea of
Also, the card, if you look at the devil, it's actually very similar to the lover in a way, because there are two people down there, except the one is connected by the chain to their neck.
yes, these are
Uh,
correspondences between there are correspondences between cards.
It's
You
like
know,
attachment or addiction or something like that. There's something that's like you can't let go. That's my interpretation.
such a good point. Such a good point. And also the lovers is sometimes called the choice. And
Mm.
and since the lovers comes before the devil, we can sort of say, well, what if you make a certain choice that then leads you into an arrangement, like maybe a codependent a relationship that's toxic. That's not like I'm not saying like the kind of codependency where you're surviving together, which can be a beautiful thing, but also the idea of like, oh, maybe you're in a friendship that's not working out. You're in a job situation that's like you should have quit 2 years ago, but your soul died, and you drank the Kool-Aid. You know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you voted for somebody you shouldn't have voted for. Maybe you chose not to leave a relationship, or you chose a mistress or an affair over something. You chose some shadow form. I'm not saying maybe you chose maybe you didn't make that choice, and maybe you went from the lovers to the chariot. Maybe you didn't go the way of the devil. But also thinking about the devil with the card, I think it's worth bringing up because so many people associate the cards with like the devil or witchcraft or whatnot, and that's why I also want to say that like I'm approaching this out of an open mind, out of an interest in depth psychology, and also
Mm-hmm.
an interest in the spirit level, but I think that like I'm the cult aspects of this are typically regarded as very dangerous, by Orthodox people as you could be led off course, so I want to, like the temperance card urges us to do, stand with one foot in the water and one foot on land. We can be we can be in a state of equilibrium around this and equanimity around this. We don't want to get
Yes.
sucked into the world of the tarot. After all, the tarot is the long journey outside of the self, according to my teacher. But that journey is only really truly comic or victorious if you return back to yourself at the end of each card. So, we don't want to become possessed by the devil card or possessed by the fool card for that matter. We want to be sovereign of each card and understanding these energies as they exist
Mm-hmm.
within us. So that's another
When
another.
I look at the Temperance card, this person who's holding those two cups, it reminds me when I was on the Vipassana meditation retreat, that no facial expression, I'm not reacting to anything. And then I think that's what you're talking about. This, like, I'm noticing what's up. Yes, I'm noticing what's coming up. And I almost like the open mind, like I'm playing with what's possible. And I think that's a good attitude to have, like, in terms of whatever situation we're facing, anyways, whether it's like, you know, a joyful, beautiful connection, beautiful moments, a job promotion, a job that I really love, I get it, or um, something is ending, or betrayal, or whatever.
The
Yeah.
flow between states. I mean, I
Yes.
think that
It's like the strength card. There's like this whole infinity.
well, I want to ask
Um,
you too, what do you know about the strength card? Because I'm really in the midst of that card right now on my personal journey. And
sure. Can you share more about your personal journey first?
okay, now I'm getting a tarot reading. I like it. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm I'm in a journey towards sobriety right now, which I really struggle with because I'm a total alcoholic. But like I also love alcohol. So I have those genes, not to blame it on my ancestors, but apparently uh
Plan them. It's okay.
my telomeres are alcoholic telomeres or something like that. So in
Mm.
any case, I don't blame them. I don't blame them at all for having me. I'm grateful, but and they like to have a little bit of alcohol put on their altar. Sometimes the alcohol, especially the alcoholic ancestors. So but so that's definitely a way that I'm seeking strength in my life, and inner strength has to do with that because
Yes.
I have to believe my own convictions, and right now, choosing strength before justice, which I consciously did a few days ago, um, has to do with this idea that, like, before I get to the state that I want to be at, I need to put some work in. I need to put some inner work in. I need to exercise. I need to eat well, and I need to control and understand my compulsive actions, my compulsive thoughts. Um,
I think I think a lot of us are addicted to something, overthinking, anxiety, stress, working. That's like, on the surface level, but deep go a little bit deeper. There's something else. I was addicted to candy, chocolate. And when I was in Esalen, I didn't have access to chocolate. It was hard. I mean, let's talk about addiction for a little bit, right? Like the recovery. It's like my experience is really, it's like, I didn't have what it take to feel whatever emotions are there. For me, it's like a lot of them anger, like suppressed anger. And I had this like a feeling of like, if I eat chocolate, I'll feel better. There's a sweetness in my system, my blood. And alcohol, what does it give you? Like if you think about the card here, right? Like when you drink, say you feel like, you just give yourself permission to drink as much as you want. Which card will pull you into?
hmm. Well, I think it's probably the Ace of Wands. Maybe
Ooh, wow, interesting. Okay.
maybe
I'm
the
surprised. I thought you were gonna see the devil or tower or something the dark sides, but yeah, Ace of
I've
Wands.
had those nights before. I've had those nights. Met the devil when I was drinking. I blew everything up. I burned my bridges when I those two. But like for me, if I'm thinking about what it brings me, why I pursue it, like I think that Dr. Gabor Mate talks about
Hmm.
um, addictions as temporary solutions to problems, right?
Yeah.
And so what we're not dealing with is necessarily the problem. We're dealing with the dysfunctional solution that we've developed as a almost as a
Yeah.
neurosis around. So I think that yeah, it's definitely the Ace of Wands for me because I have this sense of power and agency with it. And
Mm.
there's times where I've been able to hold my own and become incredibly creative, and even though it is objectively unhealthy for you, right? So, I think I associate it with a kind of magic wand or something like that. But then the illusion behind that is like, if you don't know how to control the magic wand, then maybe you should not use the magic wand. Maybe, if you lose control of it and it is an intoxicant, then you need to look at it and you need to really study and discern and look at other sources of power.
I believe every single person is addicted to something
Mhm.
with consciously or subconsciously, like some for some people they're brave enough to talk about it, like you in this conversation. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. It was in the shadow side, right? So I think it's great that we're bringing some light to this conversation and then talk about strength. What does it mean to have strength?
Rider Waite deck, which shows her
Mhm.
putting flowers or pulling flowers out of the mouth of a lion. Here in that one,
Yeah.
she's sort of handing one to the wolves and feeding it to the wolf. So
Right.
there's this common image right there of if we do a little exegesis of the flower in the mouth of the dangerous animal, or the animal that is um, once was toxic. So, for instance, talking about alcohol, right? Like, if I can look for a second and actually actually just love that part of myself for a moment and say, hey, I love the side of me that is wanting to expand and wanting to be creative and wanting to even in a way sort of experiment and lose control.
Yeah.
However, um, something if you can truly do that, something beautiful can emerge. Um, something truly strong that makes something beautiful out of something otherwise poisonous, that turns the poison into medicine. That's a hallmark of a good doctor, or a good therapist, or a good trainer, or a good mentor, or
Hmm.
a good coach that could take these raw untrained parts of you and then not only tame them but elevate them into something sublime.
What does strength mean to you? Like in your current situation, like say like if it's you got the strength you wanted, right? Like what does that mean? What does it feel like?
I think telling the truth, as you said earlier, is an important part. Not lying. If you can't tell the truth, as they say, at least don't lie. You know.
Hmm.
So strength is knowing what you don't know. Strength is being able to use what you do know in the world. I think strength is a mix of inner strength and outer strength. It's a inner strength is the courage to tell the truth, which I struggle with, the courage not to lie, which I struggle with, and to myself and to others. It's even worse amazingly when you lie to others, because sometimes it feels like there's nothing worse than lying to yourself. But I would submit that it is actually worse to lie to others, you know, even though lying to yourself is frequently what you do before you lie to other people. Um, so strength is the ability to not do those things in the moment, to know if something is wrong or not for you, and then to balk at doing it is, I think, what Philip K. Dick said. That was a truly strong person. I also think that it's to be in touch with the oldest, best parts in you, to say what Ralph Waldo Emerson said, to
Hmm.
know what are your strengths and weaknesses, as it were. And also, I think it involves physical strength and conditioning to a great extent. I don't emphasize those as the primary parts of it, but I do think that I've trained for marathons. I've run 2 marathons now. I'm training for another one, and there is a correspondent value to outer strength and inner strength. So if
Hmm.
you are not becoming addicted to exercise or becoming addicted to necessarily to one's physique, but to realizing that strength has to do with how we care for our bodies as well as our minds and our spirits. So that's strength for me. And I think that it also has to do with tempering this addiction complex. Let's think about the addiction as a lion. And we put our hand on the lion's head, we reach into the throat of the beast, and we pull out something beautiful, just as you and I are doing right now, instead of being carried away by the shadow. After strength is, I believe it is the hermit.
Oh, interesting.
So let's say you make this choice. I'm going to choose strength before justice. Then you're going to be a few cards away from justice, and you have to pass through the hermit and the wheel of fortune to get to justice. So the hermit, as the sequential consequence of strength, the idea that you've cultivated this inner strength, this you understand your physical demands, that leads to the hermit. And you think about the hermit. The hermit is usually quite physically strong. He's shown as frail, as a frail old man sometimes in the Rider Waite Smith
Hmm.
deck,
Yeah.
but we don't actually see what he looks like under on those robes. I bet you the hermit is jacked under those robes. I bet you the hermit has muscle.
Use your imagination. Yes.
Yeah, when I'm not trying to undress the hermit in my mind. Think about the old Chinese myths of the man, the hermit on the mountain. He's like usually knows martial arts. He usually knows
Right.
many things. So we can think about strength as a path of initiation physically. Let's take a step away from the inner life for a second and say, what are you doing in your life to take care of your physical health? Are you exercising? Are you minding your diet? Do you have a physical project that you're working on this year, whether it's raising your children or a physical goal that you want to meet, or a health goal that you want to overcome, or a health stage that you want to meditate, mental, physical, spiritual health. That to me is strength. And strength also to me has to do with humility. Uh,
Yes.
it has to do with being able to apologize, to reconcile, to express gratitude freely and authentically and not in a fake way. Um, to be able to take responsibility is strength. To be able to, yes, ask for forgiveness and admit when you're wrong, when it's true, not just doing it to because you know somebody's going to forgive you and to get off the hook. And then to
Hmm.
express, I think true strength is found in love and the ability to receive love from other people and to give love to other people. I think that the strongest people I know are the ones are frequently the ones that support one another. That for instance, I think about my mother yesterday. She called me and she said 2 days ago, actually, she said, "Hey, I hope you." She didn't say, "I hope you forgive your father," but I hope you understand why your father acted a certain way. And I found that to be very strong of her to do that. My father and I had no beef. We had no problem. We had a little bit of conflict, and then we resolved it right then and there, and we went on our ways. And the next day, my mother called to say, "Hey, this is actually we had a relative who died in the family, and it seemed like we were talking about one thing. Actually, um, your dad was going, through that, and that helped me understand, and so that I could really have a robust response to the situation that was the case, right? So I saw that as very strong. So I sometimes think it's like also how you support the closest people in your life, whether it's your husband or your wife or your romantic partner or your best friend or your colleagues. How can you true strength is being able to do something with those flowers that you just pulled out of the to give it away, uh, the gift from the lion, you know, uh, to give it away. That's strength. And not to overgive either, to keep something for yourself so that you're strong enough to give it away. So anyway, that's my poem.
Yeah. Hmm, will you will you share that hermit is after strength? This is interesting because it just got me to think about my meditation retreats, right? Like those 10, 15, 20 days you cannot do anything because meditation you requires uh you and I talk about renunciation for Imperial, but I think the real renunciation is really for hermit to renounce the desire, the anger, the aversion, whatever we have as, naturally as a human being. And then once we renounce that, then we get to the core, who am I? And it's interesting, it's after, because I thought it would be before. That's my experience. Once I meditate, I feel like I come so close to who I am. And that's where I find my strength because I don't have to grab a chocolate, get on a mushroom trip, whatever, to get my creative energy because I know it's there.
As for the hermit, though, I thought I would pick up on this. I think I'll be my hierophant again. Let me read Melissa Lee Holmes' passage from the hermit.
Okay.
And this is from the Elemental Power Tarot. And after this month, I'm heading towards the hermit. And I am aware that that makes sense for what I'm going through right now because it'll be after this surgery that Alex is experiencing, and then we're going to have to go within and sort of withdraw and
Yeah, healing.
limit who comes in, limit who's there, and keep it real, keep it down to earth. And so that's the hermit,
Hmm.
purposeful solitude that lights the path forward toward collective growth. Deep in a forest, surrounded by ancient trees and well stocked with books and supplies, a tiny haven awaits. And I think that's why I say I'm like a hermit, because I have this library that I sit in all the time. And like, if you want to find me, I'm like kind of Dumbledore-ish. Like you have to come to like my library place, and I'll be like in the back somewhere. Your only responsibility here is to care for yourself and to expand your mind. You are working to grow your understanding of what is possible, breaking down boundaries and making connections between the past and the future. Guidance. Take time to be alone. with your thoughts and with the thoughts of great thinkers throughout time. The more retreats you can carve out for yourself, the better. If you are able to take an extended solo trip, that's great, but it isn't strictly necessary. As it says in the Tao Te Ching, right? The master
Hmm.
doesn't need to even leave her home in order to
Yeah.
see the world. Um, Walks alone, long baths, an hour of reading in the morning or at night. What a privilege. What a privilege. Anything that steals you some time and space to explore your mind will be greatly beneficial. The wisdom you gather and synthesize now will be a beacon of light for others when you come out of seclusion to share it. Again, the idea is that we have to travel outside of ourselves, but then we have to travel back into ourselves. We have to travel uh, back into society and share what
Hmm.
we have learned. And maybe by society, I just mean your partner or your best friend. I don't mean 11 other people. You know, these periods of reflection and synthesis are precious. Take your time. Be sure to document your thinking as you go through this process. One best way to activate the hermit archetype is to journal. Just
Hmm.
journal. You'll be your own little hermit. You can carry around your hermitage in your purse or your backpack with a journal. Tracing the development of new discoveries down the line may prove quite challenging. The challenge, solitude is a mindset, a choice to prioritize alone time and to use that time to grow wisdom. We should also distinguish between solitude and isolation. There's the hermit reversed, which is like cutting yourself off from the
Hmm.
from the community in an inauthentic way, right? Um,
Right.
um, Few of us have the opportunity to get or to go into literal seclusion to pursue personal development. Do not be discouraged. It's also a great way, like you invoked the emperor um, as renouncing, and something that I said is that a great way to the king wishes that he could be a hermit. The emperor wishes that he could be a hermit, right? But he has to run the kingdom. Um, in many stories, at the end of the king's reign, the king goes into seclusion, you know. Sometimes the
Right.
king has to come out of exile and resume the throne. That's also a common myth, right? So
Yes.
frequently the king is in the wilderness and then has to come out to reclaim. Um, and um, the idea of renunciation. The hermit systematizes and lives renunciation 24/7. The king uses the tactics of the hermit to foster and administer the empire. So the king wakes up at 4 in the morning, wakes up at 3 a.m. and does his meditations and his prayers and his exercise.
Hmm.
At 5 a.m., 4, he runs the kingdom. So we can tap into the inner hermit by waking up early in the morning.
Right.
Because what is the hermit really about? Same thing that the emperor is about. Master over the material world, total freedom. It's just
Right.
one of them is looking at the entire kingdom, and the other one is looking at the um the kingdom within. You know, the world within. The apothecary of Holmes' uh, hermit card is the licorice root. Licorice creates a protective shield to allow calm, steady integration of information. Licorice root is used in many teas and candies as well as natural throat remedies. I think licorice could be a great solution for your chocolate addiction. It could probably also be a great solution for my alcohol addiction. And
It could.
that's not to replace them either. It's to use them as medicine to meditate on them. And I think
Hmm.
licorice is also an acquired taste. Some people think licorice is disgusting, you know, and I think or anise is not a good taste. But I'd say that it is beautiful, a great herb, and that it it is an acquired taste, and so is the hermit. This kind of deep solitude, most people aren't subtle enough to enjoy. And I don't mean that in an elitist way. I mean that they maybe haven't developed that part of themselves. But I would encourage anybody who's afraid of being alone or
Hmm.
afraid of solitude to go on a one day trip to a place where they are by themselves, you know. And we all have that one friend who we love, who's the golden retriever in the group who needs to be doing something. And it's like, girl, you need to go on a take an artist date with yourself and go like just, you know, maybe like take a little break, you know? So
Right.
teaching children that I think is really important. I think
Yeah,
coach
it's a
teamwork.
cultivation. I think it's really a cultivation, and a lot of us went through the traditional educational system that we nerd math, biology, chemistry, but no one told us how to really turn inward and cultivating that strength that we're talking about. The strength I think it comes down to what you're kind of talking about is really quieting our mind. The strength, the mother peace card, it's like she sits there relaxed, and there's different resources around her. She has a sun in her hand, and there's lion there. People can get scared, but she's not, and she's not scared at all. She trusts. There's like deep sense of trust.
I think that strength requires relaxation. That's a teacher.
Yeah,
She actually just called me. She hasn't talked to me in years, but I quoted her yesterday in a conversation, and then she called me today, and I was like, all right, she
beautiful. Yeah.
knows. But I haven't talked to her yet though today. She used to say that we can't become truly strong until we relax, and I think it comes
Yes.
back to your point about how everybody's addicted today. And
Hmm.
I was talking to another teacher yesterday about this, and she said, "Yeah, everybody's addicted. I mean, and everybody's super stressed. That's why everybody's addicted, is because we're all just like incredibly stressed. I live on Market Street, all right, and I've heard
Uh-huh.
some people say like our brains we're not evolved to contemplate." Uh, Grids of this complexity. Following the hermit, we go to the wheel of fortune, and you can cultivate wisdom as much as you like, but time moves at multiple rates simultaneously, to quote Melissa Lee Holm, and the one you are experiencing was chosen by the universe or by spirit for you. Well, you chose certain things, but other conditions your spirit had no control over. you
Right.
know so the hermit, as much as he renounces and scrapes together some sovereignty out of nothing, it's not all his. It's not all his. It's not all hers. It was there were certain materials that were chosen for you to play with, and you chose others, and that's where we get dropped off in justice. And that's how you can see that the tarot is an initiatory journey as well, because if it's true that each major arcana in particular and minor arcana um, has an enzymatic uh, effect where it essentially creates a new state. Um, if you move through the cards in sequence, then you start to notice these insights and these patterns around going from the Wheel of Fortune to Justice, for instance, or from going to Justice to the Hanged Man. So what we have in Justice is um, we suddenly have the world's perspective transforms upside down. You can say we'll look at a figure like Abraham Lincoln, who's frequently an archetypal sort of American figure associated with justice, right? But then he's also responsible for the greatest number of hangings of Native people in one day in the United States, right? Suddenly we go from there to the hanged man. Our world, our perspective on justice is transformed, totally flipped upside down. And then what comes after that is death. You release the burden of your illusions, and you walk into a totally new era. So you see, this is how. But then, what do you need after that? Temperance. You suddenly need to draw in all the extremities and rediscover your center. So there's some sort of map to how to live a good life, the good life that's
Yes.
guarded by the progression of the major trumps, which I think is a very funny term for the higher arcana as well. Um, they're triumphs. These are triumphs. If you can master these big obstacles, such as the devil, such as
Hmm.
the tower, or when your world falls apart, you can come to the star. And this journey you're going on, where you're being very upfront about, your initiation,
Right.
growing into the chaos afterward, and now you're finding your way as a guide in your own right. So, the hermit points to the star. Uh, the Hierophant points to the star. The ancient divine force of receptivity and creation pulses within your being. Let it move you. This is Melissa or Melinda Lee Holm. Sorry, Melinda. Melinda Lee Holm um, writes, a beehive clings to the side of a cliff. Um, and I'll pull up her artwork for it in a second, but she has a beautiful, Beautiful illustration here. Melinda Lee Holm. Dripping honey into a large ornate amphora on the edge of a clear blue pool high in the mountains. A swan rests serenely nearby, and a massive eight-pointed star, which is also in the um, Hermit's Lantern. I believe this is a six-pointed star. Dominates the sky above. This place is sacred, eternal, untouched by the concerns of the modern world. It is peace and hope made manifest. Guidance. Long before we arrived here, and long after we are gone, something has existed to nurture receptivity, to keep us, those of us who are listening, tuned in to the promise of support for our development. This current of energy keeps us going, keeps us motivated to create for the future, even when tomorrow is never promised. The evidence you are looking for that things can get better has been within you all along. You are the proof that miracles exist. To find a guiding star to follow in the night, look to your own personal journey. What have you overcome? What have you accomplished that seemed impossible? Who have you cared for, expecting nothing in return? Let your triumphs light the way. Challenge. No amount of hope can make a situation that isn't right for you work. Remain as realistic as you are optimistic, and trust where you are being pulled toward or away from. Apothecary honey soothes the emotional, energetic, and physical body with its truly everlasting sweetness and healing properties. Add it to tea, drizzle it over yogurt, eat it by the spoonful, use it as a facial treatment. So, honey, I think that remember that life is sweet,
Yeah.
and don't get lost in hope, but but um but feel the sweetness of life, I mean, um that's what I have to say. And I wonder, I wish I could get a bigger picture, step back and understand maybe what is the tarot, but maybe we just answered that through this conversation. This tarot is a dialogue. It's a jumping off point for dialogue. Both do we have with one another and we have within ourselves. So
I do have a one last question for you. What do you think makes us human being? That's a question I ask every single guest. So, there's no right or wrong answer, but I wanted to hear your thoughts.
yeah, I mean, maybe I'll answer the question with another question. The riddle of the Sphinx. What walks on four legs in the morning, two legs in the afternoon, and three legs at night? A human being. It's simple, in a way. What is it? What makes us human? How we grow and develop from being in the womb to being born to infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, and elderhood, and after that, senescence, and then death. This sequence is what makes us um, human. And then there's also, of course, language and consciousness and music. These make us human. Um, there's another riddle of the Sphinx. I wrote an essay about it, the second riddle of the Sphinx, to which the answer um, to the riddle is the world. And the idea is that it's not only important to understand who am I, who we are, and what we are, but it's also important to understand the world that we're in. And so I think another um, answer to the question of what makes us human is the world. That makes us human. I'm not just talking about the earth, as if I could just talk about the earth. The earth is what feeds us all. But the world is, you might say, the earth divided by humanity equals the world, right? Um, there's a social dimension to our animal lives as humans, right? There's a political dimension to our animal lives as humans. Um, and that's what makes us human, I think, is how we show up within those categories of our social lives, our political lives, our private lives. I quote the great philosopher Richard Rorty, who said um, that our our private lives ought to be beautiful and our public lives ought to be humane. And that word humane is an interesting word. Somebody slapped the word E on the end of it and suddenly made it into an adjective or an adverb. Uh, Humanely demonstrating that there is an ideal order. We're not just, even though nothing human is alien to me, we're not just here to satisfy our base desires, or we're here to do something a little higher. Um, and I think that is to consciously change and to accept our changes and and to grow without being cliche, but to grow into this sequence of birth and death, you know, and yes, to leave something to humanity after us, the next generation. I think this consciousness, this particular idealism around the next generation is what makes us human as well, because it's not just about passing on our genes and expressing our reproductive health, which I think is so important, but I think there's a bigger picture, which is that what kind of world are we leaving for the next generation? And if we can be conscious of that, then we will be on the way towards expressing our full humanity, you know. And but we all express this differently. There's many different human beings. There's more human beings in the world than I could count. So I don't. That's just what it is for me, you know.
Mm. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's certain humbleness in your way of expressing your thoughts. And I do feel like each of us is part of the whole picture, big picture, where I always feel like no one is better or, just because someone who is a CEO of a certain company makes $1 billion is better than a janitor because we're all equal in a way. We're all contributing to the world. And so to your point, what do we want to leave behind? What kind of world do we want to cultivate together? With or without agreeing to it, we are cultivating a world together. We wanted to have wars, kill and add more violence, or do we wanted to cultivate something different? So I think there's maybe a bigger question for us all
No,
to contemplate.
I agree, and I think I end on a note that in back in the bookstore in December, we had the National Security Advisor, H.R. McMaster, into the shop to talk about military and um, his memoir of the Trump administration and his foreign policy book and his history of the Vietnam War, the American War in Vietnam. And it made me think about, how we are locked in to a certain global order and how we're locked into all these economic and material orders. And that's why I think a lot of people are really going through it right now, as we all feel locked in, like we're in the chariot, we're being carried through a procession that
Yeah.
maybe we some people say we chose to incarnate in this life, so we have to take responsibility for it. And how do we show up? And how do we build bridges between um, different systems of thought, you know? And how do we also uh, stand up for our own convictions and at the same time not become narcissistic and work with other people and yes, tell the truth and yes, not lie. Um, I think that's really important to me right now is um, how I'm at the end of the day. Do I have I is there a war in my life? Am I with my brother, literally my brother, am I literally my sister, my sibling that I have to resolve? Is there
Yeah.
something, did I say the right thing today? Did I do the right thing? Uh, and also did not moralizing, like was it actually the meat, was it the right thing to do, to for the project that we're working on? So know what day of the year it is, know what time it is, know what season it is, know what when was the last time you honored this one friendship or this one relationship that you had? Maybe it's been a while, maybe I need to go and call my friend and reach out, be the one that initiates. And something that I'm thinking about too is that I want to be the one that initiates. There are times where I want somebody else to initiate and reach out,
Hmm.
and so, but I have to realize that I can't control anybody but myself,
That's
So
true.
keep on saying I'm going to leave. It's the true Irish goodbye is when you never leave. Everybody always says, It's when you dip out without saying goodbye. That's not how I was
Mhm.
taught. I was taught literally the opposite meaning is the Irish goodbye, which is when you're standing at the door talking for like 2 hours, you know? I was in Japan a couple months ago and I went to Kamakura and
Mhm.
I didn't know that's where the Amida Buddha was. I went there to go see the grave of a movie director that I really liked. And and I was so astonished by the incredible living spirituality of this village, the animist shrines, the uh, Shinto shrines, the Buddhist shrines. You couldn't even call them one religion or other after a while. It was some people that just they recognized the river or the tree or the way that the earth moved at this one corner, and they had a specific gnosis and spirituality for this one place. So I would encourage people to study about this little town and wherever you have planted yourself, start pay attention to the land there and really build, get in touch. Find out what the spirit of the land is where you are at, and what plants grow,
Mhm.
and what the biosphere is there, and find out, get in touch with it, so that you can start to honor it, you know, in your own way. Because I think that's a way that we could also cope with the stress of times and the addictions of the times is to cultivate a spiritual life, cultivate an inner life that is based on the land that you live on.
Yeah.
And that's also that's a tough thing because a lot of people are, you know, um, sort of vagrant in this world. We don't have roots. We don't have own homes. We don't have a land. So anyway,
Just flowing around.
I could talk to you forever.
I can talk to you forever too. I wanted to just maybe close the conversation by saying, like, the way how you engage life, it's inspiring because you bring in this like open mindedness, like you're saying, you're saying be open to things. But I think the way how you think about things, it's very inspiring because my spiritual teacher always say this, Sha, like don't hold your fist like you are so sure about this one thing or anything, right? Lose your grip, open up and then see what's possible. Even for things that you're so sure about, maybe just lose it a little bit. And
Right.
so you're talking about exploring other, land and then, philosophers. And then, I think it's time to bring in philosophers back to your life because we need it, finding the truth within us. And so I appreciate you and this conversation. And you have a Stone Foundation where you write your essays and share your essays and everything. Where I guess tell people where to find you if they wanted to connect with you,
It's on
have a deeper
Substack.
conversation.
If you're up at 3 in the morning, you'll get some email from me. I just write poetry and I write essays, and I'm finding myself through that Substack, which I've been doing for about a year, and I don't know uh, how much longer the experiment will go, but I've been enjoying it. I think I would like to publish a physical book soon, just for aesthetic reasons. But if you really want to find me, I'm often at Feldman's Books in Menlo Park, where I've been a manager for a decade, and we read tarot at the shop usually once a month. And by the way, not as much divination as it is meditation and initiation. But I'm trying to tell people to be careful. Only use this stuff on yourself. Don't you don't need to project on anybody else or try to use anything to. That's not what I'm about. So it's more about contemplation, meditation, prayer, and reading for me. And writing.
Mm.
So um, uh, I'm open to people can email me if you can. It's easy to find my email or things out there. I'm pretty open. And thanks so much, Shah, for this, and really, yeah, keep on doing what you're doing. I think you're exactly where you need to be right now. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for this and good divination, good little spread here too. I think the tower is clearly things are going to change any day now. So brace yourselves and mark my words. Today is May 7th, 2025, the year of our Lord. Brace yourselves, y'all, and yeah, pay attention.
Are you still doing this whole book club thing that?
Probably the last Tuesday of the month at Feldman's Books.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's the second to last. If you check our website, there'll be a date posted. So we were going to read "I'm Not Your Negro" by James Baldwin and screen the film. But then since we switched from Justice to Strength, we're reading Audre Lorde's Zami. Uh, and that's a list that was curated by Marcus over at Fabuloso Books on Castro Street and commissioned by Saida Hafiz.
Oh yeah.
who is how we know each other. And
Yes.
shout out to Saida, the healing from Parallax Press, a one woman's journey from poverty to inner riches. But I gotta represent Saida Hafiz because she's one of my great teachers and great guides. And also, here's another thing tip from the Hierophant: go and find a teacher today.
Yeah.
You know, go whether it's a book, whether it's Buddha, whether it's Jesus, Socrates, whoever it is, or it's somebody at the coffee shop. Go and find a teacher, find a mentor, or become a mentor to a young person today,
Yeah.
because young people, we need mentors. We need them. We need
Well,
elders.
they say that when students are ready, teachers appear. So you have to be ready and the willingness to connect, and then maybe someone will show up. You never know. I think we're all teachers and students for each other. Like, conversation with you and Saida, I feel like there are times I was definitely like, kindergarten student, where there are times I'm sharing my insights. So we're all exchanging that energy
We're
in
friends,
each
so that's
conversation. Yeah.
that's the best way of learning for me personally, in my opinion.
Hmm.
All right, my dear. Great to see you.
Cheers.
So grateful. This was really a lot of fun.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoy the show, don't forget to subscribe and share the show with your colleagues and friends. I'll see you next week.